Have you ever wondered, like, what true unconditional love really looks like?
Yeah.
And we talk about it all the time, but what does it actually look like? I think today's deep dive might change the way you think about love, especially when it comes to the Bible.
Yeah, love is a big topic.
Huge.
Yeah, and it's kind of a slippery word, like we can throw it around.
It means so many different
Yeah,
things to
exactly.
so many different people.
So today we're talking about this Hebrew word kesed that pops up all over the Bible.
Okay.
And it's one of those words that's so hard to translate into English.
Oh, I hate that.
Me too. But that's kind of a good thing
Why?
because it forces us to wrestle with it a little bit.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
It's not a simple word.
So what does it mean? Like, give me a clue.
It's about this kind of love that goes so far beyond just like warm feelings.
Okay.
It's about loyalty and faithfulness.
Like a deep commitment.
Yes, a deep, unwavering commitment.
Okay, so it's not just about saying I love you. It's about like putting your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. It's about action.
All right, so what kind of actions are we talking about?
Well, we see Karist playing out all over the Bible in all sorts of ways,
Yeah.
from these huge epic stories of God interacting with all of humanity to the smaller personal narratives.
I love that the Bible has both.
Me too. It's amazing.
And the source material we're using for this deep dive is a Bible Project video.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
They always do such a good job of explaining things clearly.
I agree.
And they use this story in their video about Karis that always gets me.
Oh, which one?
The story of Ruth and Naomi.
Ruth and Naomi. Such a powerful example of cares in action.
Seriously?
Like, here's Naomi, right? This widow who has lost literally everything, her husband and sons.
That's like the worst.
It's devastating, right? She's just ready to give up.
Yeah, you can't blame her.
But her daughter-in-law, Ruth, refuses to leave her side.
It would have been so understandable if she just like went back to her own people and started over.
Totally.
But she doesn't. She makes this incredible vow to Naomi.
Do you remember what she says?
I do. It's my favorite part. Where you go, I will go.
Right.
And where you stay, I will stay.
So good. That's kissed right there.
Talk about loyalty.
It's such a beautiful picture of it. Ruth is like, I'm with you no matter what.
Yeah, and she means it.
And she follows through.
For sure. So we see Kest in these human relationships, but the video then takes us deeper, connecting it to God's character.
Ooh, that's where it gets really interesting.
For sure. And they use this story of Jacob, who, well, let's be honest, he wasn't always the nicest guy.
Haha, that's putting it mildly.
Right. Like he was kind of a schemer.
Yeah, he was known for being a bit of a deceiver even with his own family.
But even with all of Jacob's flaws,
God chooses him.
and like reaffirms this huge promise that he made to Jacob's grandfather, Abraham.
Yeah, this promise about a special relationship with God and a family line that would bless the entire world.
It's a lot to live up to.
For sure.
So even though Jacob wasn't exactly deserving of this kind of love and favor, God stuck with him.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
Totally. And Jacob himself recognizes how undeserving he is.
He even says, I'm not worthy of all the K's you've shown me.
I mean, that really emphasizes that God's case isn't based on what we do or don't do.
Right, it's simply an outpouring of his nature.
It's like who he is at his core.
Exactly.
And that changes the game when it comes to how we understand God's love, doesn't it?
For sure. It's not about earning his favor, it's about recognizing that it's already there.
Always.
Always.
So where else do we see this case of God at work in the Bible?
Well, think about the Exodus story.
One of my favorites.
Mine too. God freeing the Israelites from slavery in Egypt.
Such a powerful story.
And it's important to remember that this wasn't because they were like particularly righteous or anything.
Oh yeah, they were kind of a mess.
Uh-huh. They really were.
Like constantly forgetting about God and turning away from him.
But God, remembering his covenant with Abraham and Jacob, acts out of his case to liberate his people.
You know, sometimes people stumble over the word covenant. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. A covenant is basically a sacred agreement or promise.
Like a super serious promise?
Exactly. And in this case, God made a covenant with Abraham and his descendants, promising to bless them and make them a great nation.
Okay.
So when God frees the Israelites, it's not just a random act of kindness. He's fulfilling his promise.
Wow.
He's showing his faithfulness to the covenant he made.
So even when the Israelites were messing up, even when they were being unfaithful, God remained faithful to them
He did.
because of his case.
Yes. his love, his loyalty, his commitment to his promises.
That's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It really is. And this case of God shines through in how he deals with the Israelites, even after he's freed them from slavery.
Okay.
There's this incident where they totally rebel against God.
You ready to go back to Egypt?
I know. They basically said, we'd rather be slaves than follow you, God.
What?
Yeah, like a total slap in the face.
And Moses has to step in and plead for their forgiveness.
It's a really tense moment.
I bet. So what happens?
Well, here's the thing. Moses, in his plea to God, doesn't try to justify the Israelites' actions at all.
Okay.
He doesn't say, hey, God, they're really sorry. Please give them another chance. Instead, he appeals to God's character.
Interesting.
He basically says, God, forgive them not because they deserve it, but because you are a God of caste.
Wow. So Moses was banking on God's inherent unwavering love to save the day?
He was.
Did it work?
It did. God listens to Moses and chooses to forgive the Israelites.
That's powerful.
And it shows us something crucial about God's cases.
What's that?
It's not conditional on our behavior. It's not something we earn. It's
Yeah.
something that flows from who God is.
Even when we mess up in spectacular ways.
Exactly. It's amazing, isn't it?
Totally amazing. It makes you wonder how we can possibly live up to that kind of love.
That's a great question, and one we should definitely explore further.
We'll have to dive into that in our next deep dive on Cased.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like God saying, I know you're going to mess up, but my love for you isn't going anywhere.
Right. And that's so different from how we humans experience love a lot of times.
For sure. Like, we're so conditional with our love.
And that's what the prophet Hosea talks about. He actually contrasts human love with God's kargest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he compares human loyalty to a morning mist.
Okay.
You know, it disappears as soon as the sun comes up.
Oh, yeah.
It's fleeting and unreliable.
So it's here 1 minute, gone the next.
Exactly. But God's kargest is like the sun itself.
Constant and dependable.
Yes. No matter what.
I like that analogy.
Me too. It's so powerful.
And then there's this Psalm 136.
Yes.
That repeats the phrase, his courage endures forever, over and over.
It's like a chorus.
Is beautiful.
It's this amazing reminder that God's love isn't just like a feeling that comes and goes. It's an internal part of who he is.
It's in his DNA.
Exactly. So how does this all connect to Jesus?
Yeah, the video seems to be suggesting that Jesus is like the ultimate expression of God's cast.
Totally. The video makes this really powerful connection between God's kiss throughout the Old Testament, and then boom, Jesus arrives on the scene.
It's like the whole story of the Bible is leading up to this moment.
Yeah, it's all pointing towards Jesus.
So it's not just that Jesus shows us what Kest looks like.
Right.
It's that he actually embodies it completely.
Yes. Jesus's life, death, and resurrection, those are like the ultimate acts of God's kiss towards us.
It's hard to wrap your mind around.
I know. Think about it. God, in the person of Jesus, comes to earth, lives a perfect life, and then willingly sacrifices himself for us.
Even though we don't deserve it.
Exactly. And that's kissed in a nutshell.
It's mind-blowing.
It really is. But the video doesn't stop there.
It doesn't.
No, it challenges us to respond to this incredible kes with kest of our own.
Okay, so it's not just about sitting back and appreciating God's love from afar.
Right. It's about becoming active participants in it.
So how do we do that?
Well, the video doesn't give us a step-by-step guide or anything, but it emphasizes that true Kedezd starts with an internal transformation.
Like a change of heart.
Yes. It's about letting God's love sink deep into us and change us from the inside out.
So it's not just about doing good deeds. It's about becoming the kind of people who naturally express love and compassion.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a heart that reflects God's own heart.
Okay.
A heart of forgiveness, generosity, and unwavering commitment to others.
That sounds like a tall order.
It is. But that's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, to break free from our selfish tendencies and start living out this radical kind of love.
Yeah, to move beyond just knowing about Kedezd and actually putting it into practice.
So how do we do that? Where do we even begin?
Well, the video highlights that living out Kedezd is a journey, not a destination.
Makes sense.
It's about continually learning and growing in our understanding of what it means to love like God loves.
So it's not about being perfect.
Right. It's about making a conscious effort to reflect God's love in our relationships, our communities, even our interactions with strangers.
Basically everything we do.
Exactly. It's about seeing the world through the lens of Kedezd.
Okay, I like that.
Recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every person we encounter.
Even the difficult ones.
Especially the difficult ones. It's about extending grace and mercy even when we don't feel like it.
Even when it's hard.
Yes. That's the heart of Tez. It's not about earning love or deserving
It's
it,
about giving it freely.
because that's what God has done for us.
Wow, that's powerful.
It's a powerful way to live, and I think the video does a fantastic job of unpacking all of that.
I agree. And, the video brings up this really interesting challenge when it talks about responding to God's Kes with Kes of our own.
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder how this shapes our understanding of forgiveness.
Ooh, that's a great question, and one that we should definitely dive into.
Yeah, it really makes you think about how we approach forgiveness,
Huh.
like giving it to others and receiving it ourselves. It's easy to get caught up in the hurt and the anger when someone wrongs us. But this whole idea of Kes seems to suggest a different way.
Oh, totally. Holding on to grudges and refusing to forgive goes against the very nature of Kesed. If God's love for us is really unconditional and enduring, then shouldn't our love for others be the same way?
Like, shouldn't we be extending that same spirit of forgiveness?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, God is perfect and holy, and He chooses to forgive us over and over again. So how can we possibly withhold forgiveness from others?
Right? We're just flawed humans.
It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
Totally.
It's like we're trying to hold back the ocean with a bucket when we refuse to forgive. God's Kes is this massive ocean of love and mercy, and it just doesn't make sense to try and block it out.
So practically speaking, how does Kesed actually shape how we forgive people in our relationships? Like, what does it look like to forgive someone through that lens of Kesed?
I think it starts with trying to see the person who hurt us with compassion. Remembering that they are also recipients of God's Kes, even if their actions don't show it.
So it's about remembering their humanity. Like, they're not just the sum of their mistakes.
Right, exactly. And they're loved by God just like we are.
It's about recognizing that their behavior might be hurtful, but that doesn't mean they're a bad person.
Yeah, their actions might come from their own hurt or brokenness, or maybe they just don't understand Kes themselves.
And it's important to remember that forgiveness isn't about saying what they did was okay.
Oh, for sure. It's not about condoning bad behavior.
It's about releasing ourselves from that anger and resentment.
Yeah, breaking free from the chains of bitterness that can keep us stuck in the past.
It's about choosing to move forward. Not because the other person deserves it, but because we deserve the freedom that comes with forgiveness.
And this also applies to forgiving ourselves.
Ooh, that's a good point. We can be so hard on ourselves.
We really can.
Yeah.
Holding on to past mistakes and beating ourselves up for things we can't change.
It's the worst. Like replaying those moments of failure in our minds, even though God's already forgiven us.
Embracing Kes means extending that same grace and mercy to ourselves, too.
So it's about recognizing that we're all works in progress
Yeah, we're all constantly being shaped and molded by God.
and accepting ourselves flaws and all,
Knowing that God's love isn't based on us being perfect,
letting go of the guilt and shame.
but embracing the freedom that comes with knowing we are fully loved and accepted by God just as we are.
Wow, this deep dive has been incredible. We started with just this one word, Kes,
Right.
and we've explored all these powerful stories of faithfulness
And ended up reflecting on the very nature of God's love.
and how it impacts every part of our lives.
It's amazing how one concept can open up so many layers of understanding.
It really shows how the Bible isn't just some ancient book.
Yeah, it's a living guide to understanding who God is and how we can relate to him.
And the most important takeaway from all of this is that God's Kes, his unwavering love, isn't just some abstract idea.
It's so much more than that.
It's a force that can change everything about our lives and our relationships if we let it.
It's a love that invites us to participate, to become agents of that same love out in the world.
So on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought.
Mm-hmm.
If God's Kes is truly eternal and all-encompassing, how might that change our understanding of forgiveness, both giving it and receiving it in our own lives?